What happens when a former president walks into a late-night interview expecting softball questions, but instead faces the most confrontational conversation of his media career? What happens when a host refuses to back down and a guest refuses to be questioned? Tonight, we're breaking down the interview that ended with security being called, cameras cutting to black, and a moment that nobody in that studio will ever forget. Before we get into this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me who you think was in the right here, because this one is going to divide opinion. Trevor Noah sat behind his desk with his usual composed demeanor, the studio audience buzzing with anticipation. Donald Trump walked out to a mixed reception, some cheers, some awkward silence. He settled into the guest chair with that familiar confidence, adjusting his suit jacket and offering a wave to the crowd. Trevor started with a smile. "Mr. President, thank you for being here." Trump nodded. "It's good to be here, Trevor. Great show, really. Lots of people watch." "Well, we appreciate that," Trevor said, his tone friendly but measured. "I want to start with something that's been on a lot of people's minds. Your recent comments about election integrity have sparked quite a bit of debate. Can you clarify what you meant when you said the system is fundamentally broken?" Trump leaned back. "Well, Trevor, I think anyone with eyes can see that there are problems. Big problems. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There are issues with how elections are run in this country. Lots of people agree with me. Millions of people." Trevor's smile remained, but his eyes sharpened. "But when you say the system is broken, are you referring to specific instances of fraud? Or are you speaking more broadly about concerns with the process?" "I'm talking about both," Trump replied. "Look, I've seen things. I've heard things. People come up to me all the time and tell me stories. And these aren't just random people, these are officials, poll workers, people who know what they're talking about." "Right. But when you say you've seen things and heard things, can you give us something concrete?" Trevor pressed. "Because the challenge with these claims is that when they go to court, they haven't held up. Multiple judges, including judges you appointed, have said there isn't evidence of widespread fraud." Trump's expression shifted slightly, a flash of irritation. "Well, Trevor, I think the courts have been very unfair. Very unfair. They didn't want to hear the cases. They dismissed them on technicalities, not on the merits. If they had actually looked at the evidence, really looked at it, I think you'd see a very different story." "But they did look at the evidence in many cases," Trevor countered, his tone still measured but firmer now. "And the conclusion was that it didn't support the claims being made. So I'm trying to understand, do you believe that all of these judges, all of these election officials from both parties, are part of some coordinated effort?" Trump pointed a finger. "I didn't say that. But I will say this. There are people who didn't want me to win. That's not controversial, that's obvious. And when you have that kind of opposition, that kind of resistance, you can't expect everything to be fair and square." The audience was quiet now, the energy in the room shifting from anticipation to tension. Trevor leaned forward slightly. "I think what concerns people, Mr. President, is that when you make these claims without presenting verifiable evidence, it undermines trust in democracy itself. And that's a dangerous thing, regardless of who's doing it." Trump's jaw tightened. "You know what's dangerous, Trevor? The media not reporting the truth. That's dangerous. I've been treated very unfairly by the press, by people like you, frankly, who take things out of context and twist my words." "I'm not twisting your words," Trevor said calmly. "I'm asking you to explain them. That's what an interview is." "Well, maybe you should ask better questions," Trump shot back, his voice rising slightly. "Because these questions, they're very biased, very slanted. I came here thinking we'd have a real conversation, but this feels more like an interrogation." Trevor didn't flinch. "With respect, Mr. President, these are questions that millions of Americans want answered. If you can't handle being asked about your public statements, then maybe the issue isn't with the questions." The room went dead silent. Trump stared at Trevor, his face reddening. "Excuse me?" "I'm just saying," Trevor continued, his voice steady, "that if you make claims about election fraud, if you tell your supporters that the system is rigged, you should be prepared to back that up with something more than vague references to unnamed sources and feelings. Trump stood up slightly in his chair, his body language aggressive. I don't need to prove anything to you, Trevor. I know what I know, and the American people know what they know. They see what's happening in this country and they're not happy about it. But see, that's the problem, Trevor said, his tone sharper now. You're speaking for the American people, but you're really just speaking for the people who already agree with you. Half the country is looking at this and saying, "Where's the proof?" And instead of providing it, you attack anyone who asks. Trump's eyes narrowed. I'm not attacking you. I'm defending myself against a very unfair line of questioning. You invited me here, and now you're being disrespectful. I invited you here to have a conversation, Trevor replied. A real one, not a promotional appearance where I just nod along while you repeat talking points. If that's what you wanted, you should have gone on a different show. Trump pointed at him again, his voice louder now. You know what your problem is, Trevor? You think you're smarter than everyone else. You sit here with your jokes and your smugness, and you look down on people who don't agree with you. That's not true, Trevor said, his composure still intact. I respect different opinions. What I don't respect is dishonesty. And when you make claims that undermine democracy, that inspire people to question the legitimacy of elections without cause, that's not. Trump leaned forward, his voice cutting through the silence. You want to talk about dangerous? Let's talk about the media lying to the American people every single day. Let's talk about how you and your friends in the press cover for politicians you like and go after the ones you don't. That's what's really undermining democracy, Trevor. Trevor shook his head slowly. That's a deflection. I'm asking you about specific claims you've made, and instead of answering, you're attacking the media. It's the same playbook every time. Dry. It's not a deflection when it's the truth, Trump fired back. You sit here and act like you're some neutral journalist, but everybody knows you're not. You have an agenda. You've always had an agenda, and that's fine, but don't pretend you're being fair. My agenda is accountability, Trevor said, his voice firm. And right now, I'm trying to hold you accountable for statements that have real-world consequences. When you tell people the election was stolen, some of them believe you. Some of them act on it. And we've seen what happens when they do. Trump's face darkened. Are you blaming me for what other people do? Because that's ridiculous. I can't control what everyone does. I never told anyone to do anything illegal. But you created the environment, Trevor pressed. You spent months telling people their votes didn't count, that the system was rigged against them, that they should fight to take back their country. Those aren't abstract concepts, Mr. President. Those are calls to action. That's your interpretation, Trump snapped. When I say fight, I mean fight politically. Fight at the ballot box. But you people in the media, you twist everything to make me look bad. You take a word like fight and you turn it into something it's not. Trevor's expression hardened. Words matter, especially when they come from someone in your position. You know that. And if you're going to use inflammatory language and then claim it's being misinterpreted, that's either naive or it's intentional. Which one is it? Trump stood up fully now, his hands gesturing emphatically. I don't have to sit here and be lectured by you. I came here as a courtesy, and you've done nothing but attack me from the moment I sat down. I've asked you questions, Trevor said, standing as well. That's literally my job. And if you can't handle questions without calling it an attack, then maybe you're not as tough as you claim to be. The audience gasped. Trump's eyes widened, his mouth opening in disbelief. What did you just say to me? I said maybe you're not as tough as you claim to be, Trevor repeated, his voice calm but unyielding. You talk about being strong, about fighting back, about never backing down. But the moment someone challenges you with basic questions, you fold. You deflect. You attack. You play the victim. Trump's face was red now, his finger jabbing toward Trevor. You have no idea what I've been through. No idea. I've faced more opposition than any president in history, and I'm still standing. You think you can come at me with your little questions and break me? You're nothing, Trevor. You're a comedian who got lucky with a TV show. Trevor didn't back down. And you're a former president who can't answer a simple question about evidence, so where does that leave us? It leaves us with me walking out of here, Trump said, his voice rising to a shout. Because I don't need this. I don't need to be disrespected on national television by someone who wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for people like me giving you something to talk about. Then leave, Trevor said simply. Nobody's forcing you to stay. But if you walk out, everyone watching is going to know it's because you couldn't defend your own statements. Trump stared at him, breathing heavily. You think I care what people think? I've been dealing with critics my whole life. You're just another one in a long line. Then answer the question, Trevor challenged. Stop deflecting and just answer. Do you have evidence of widespread election fraud? Yes or no? I've already answered that, Trump said through gritted teeth. I've answered it 100 times, but you don't want to hear it because it doesn't fit your narrative. No, you haven't answered it, Trevor countered. You've talked around it. You've made vague references. You've blamed the media and the courts and everyone else. But you haven't provided a single piece of concrete evidence that would stand up to scrutiny. Trump's hands were trembling now, his composure completely shattered. You know what? You're a disgrace. You come from South Africa. You come to this country, and you use your platform to tear down everything that makes America great. You should be grateful you're even here. The audience erupted in shocked murmurs. Trevor's expression turned cold. And there it is. When you can't win the argument, you attack where someone's from. That's really presidential of you. I'm telling the truth, Trump insisted. You don't love this country the way I do. You don't understand what it means to be American. You're an outsider looking in, criticizing everything. I'm an American citizen, Trevor said, his voice icy. And I love this country enough to call out people who are trying to destroy it from within. People who lie to their supporters, who undermine democratic institutions, who can't handle being questioned without having a meltdown on live television. Trump took a step toward the desk. You want to see a meltdown? Keep talking. Keep pushing. See what happens. Trevor didn't move. Is that a threat, Mr. President? It's a promise that you're going to regret this, Trump said, his voice low and dangerous. You think you can humiliate me on your little show? I'll make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are. I'll make sure your ratings tank. I'll make sure... You'll make sure what? Trevor interrupted. That you'll tweet about me? That you'll call me names at your rallies? Go ahead. Add me to the list of people you've tried to intimidate. I'll be in good company. Trump's chest was heaving, his fists clenched at his sides. The producers were visible at the edge of... Trevor crossed his arms, his stance unwavering. You know what the real problem is here, Mr. President? You've spent so long surrounding yourself with people who tell you what you want to hear, that you've forgotten how to have an actual conversation with someone who disagrees with you. This isn't an attack. This is what discourse looks like in a functioning democracy. Trump laughed bitterly. Discourse? You call this discourse? You've been hostile from the first question. You had your mind made up about me before I even walked through that door. I had questions, Trevor corrected. Questions based on things you've said publicly. If you can't distinguish between being asked about your own words and being attacked, that says more about you than it does about me. Don't psychoanalyze me, Trump snapped. You don't know me. You don't know what I've accomplished, what I've built, what I've done for this country. Then tell me, Trevor said, spreading his hands. Tell the audience. But you can't do it without lying, can you? That's the issue. Every accomplishment gets exaggerated. Every criticism gets dismissed as fake news. Every failure gets blamed on someone else. At what point do you take responsibility for anything? Trump's voice rose to a shout. I've taken more responsibility than any president in history. I rebuilt the economy. I secured the border. I made America respected again. And what did I get for it? Constant attacks, constant investigations, constant lies from people like you. The economy you inherited was already recovering, Trevor shot back. The border was never as open as you claimed. And respect isn't measured by fear, it's measured by trust. And our allies didn't trust you. They tolerated you because they had to. That's your opinion, Trump said, his finger jabbing toward Trevor again. That's the opinion of the elite media and the coastal elites who never liked me anyway. But the real Americans, the people in the heartland, they know the truth. They know what I did for them. Trevor shook his head. Stop hiding behind the American people. You don't speak for all of them. You speak for your base, and your base believes you because you tell them what they want to hear, not because you tell them the truth. I tell the truth, Trump insisted, his voice cracking slightly. I've always told the truth. Just because you don't like the truth doesn't make it a lie. No, but saying something doesn't make it true, Trevor countered. And that's the fundamental issue here. You've blurred the line between reality and your version of reality so much that you can't even tell the difference anymore. And that's dangerous for everyone. Trump's hands were shaking visibly now, his face a deep crimson. You know what's dangerous? Having someone like you, who doesn't even really understand American culture, telling Americans how to think. You're an immigrant. You came here. This is my country. I was born here. I built businesses here. I became president here. What have you done except make jokes? The audience was louder now, some booing, some gasping, the energy chaotic. Trevor's jaw clenched, his eyes flashing with barely controlled anger. I've used my platform to speak truth to power. I've held people accountable. I've given voice to perspectives that get ignored. And yes, I've made jokes, because sometimes humor is the only way to process how absurd things have become. But I've never lied to my audience. I've never told them to reject reality because it doesn't suit my narrative. You lie every night, Trump shouted. Every monologue is a lie. Every segment is biased. You pick and choose what to cover based on what makes me look bad and what makes your side look good. My side? Trevor said incredulously. I don't have a side. I have principles. I have standards. And when anyone violates those standards, regardless of party, I call it out. The difference is you violate them constantly, so yeah, you get called out constantly. Trump stepped closer to the desk, his voice dropping to a threatening growl. You're making a big mistake right now, Trevor. A very big mistake. You think you can talk to me like this and there won't be consequences? Trevor leaned forward, meeting his gaze. What are you going to do? Sue me? You sue everyone. You threaten everyone. And somehow the world keeps spinning. So go ahead, add me to the list. I'm not scared of you. You should be, Trump said quietly, his eyes cold. You really should be. One of the producers rushed onto the stage now, trying to position himself between them. Gentlemen, let's take a breath here. We can cut to commercial and— No, Trump interrupted, pointing at the producer. I'm not taking a break. I'm not coming back from commercial. I'm done. This interview is over. Trevor spread his hands. Then leave. The door's right there. Oh, I'm leaving, Trump said, ripping off his microphone and throwing it onto the chair. But everyone's going to hear about this. Everyone's going to know how you ambushed me, how you set me up, how you tried to humiliate me on national television. Boy, I asked you questions, Trevor repeated, his voice steady despite the chaos. That's all I did. If you feel humiliated, it's because you couldn't answer them. That's on you. Trump turned to the audience, addressing them directly. You see this? You see what they do? They invite you on, they pretend it's going to be fair, and then they attack you. This is what the mainstream media does. This is why you can't trust them. Some of the audience members were shouting now, some in support, some in opposition. The energy in the studio was electric and volatile. Trevor remained behind his desk, watching Trump's performance with a mixture of disbelief and cold satisfaction. "Are you done?" Trevor asked when Trump paused for breath. Trump whirled back toward him. "I'll be done when I decide I'm done, not when you tell me I'm done." "Then by all means continue," Trevor said, gesturing broadly. "Keep going. Keep showing everyone exactly who you are. Because this right here, this meltdown, this inability to handle basic scrutiny, this is what people need to see." Trump's face contorted with rage. "You think you're so smart. You think you've won something here, but you haven't. You've just ended your career." "My career will be fine," Trevor said calmly. "I'm not the one who just had a public breakdown on live television because someone asked me to back up my claims with evidence." Trump took another step forward, and now security personnel were moving in from the wings, clearly concerned about the escalating situation. "Get out of my way," Trump barked at them as they approached. The security personnel hesitated, clearly unsure of how to handle a former president in this state. Trump pointed at them dismissively. "I don't need you. I'm leaving on my own. But I'm not sneaking out the back. I'm walking out the front, and everyone's going to see what happened here." Trevor remained seated now, his expression calm but alert. "Nobody's stopping you from leaving. But let's be clear about what happened here. You came on this show. I asked you legitimate questions about your public statements, and you couldn't handle it. That's the story. That's what people are going to remember." "That's not what they're going to remember," Trump shot back, his voice hoarse from shouting. "They're going to remember that you were disrespectful, that you were biased, that you had an agenda from the start, and they're going to remember that I didn't back down from a bully." Trevor let out a short, incredulous laugh. "I'm the bully? I'm sitting at my desk asking questions while you're screaming and threatening me. If anyone's watching this and thinks I'm the bully in this situation, they need to get their eyes checked." "You ambushed me," Trump insisted, his voice desperate now, the anger mixing with something that almost sounded like panic. "This whole thing was a setup. You never intended to have a fair conversation." "I intended to have an honest conversation," Trevor corrected. "And the moment you realized I wasn't going to let you avoid accountability, you fell apart. That's what happened. And you can spin it however you want, but the cameras caught everything." Trump's eyes widened slightly at that, as if he'd momentarily forgotten they were being recorded. He looked around at the cameras, then back at Trevor. "Turn them off. Turn the cameras off right now." The producer who had stepped onto the stage shook his head nervously. "Sir, we're live. We can't just—" "I said turn them off," Trump roared, his composure completely shattered. "This doesn't air. None of this airs. I'll sue this network into oblivion if 1 second of this makes it to broadcast." Trevor stood up again, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You can't suppress this. It's live television. Millions of people are watching right now. It's already out there. You can't take it back." Trump's breathing was ragged, his hands trembling as he pointed at Trevor one last time. "You've made an enemy today, a powerful enemy, and you're going to regret this for the rest of your life." "I'll take my chances," Trevor said quietly, "because at the end of the day, I can sleep knowing I told the truth." "Can you say the same?" That seemed to break something in Trump. He lunged toward the desk, not physically threatening but aggressive enough that security immediately moved in, grabbing his arms gently but firmly. "Get your hands off me!" Trump shouted, trying to pull away. "Don't touch me!" "Do you know who I am?" "Sir, we need you to calm down," one of the security officers said, his voice professional but firm. "We're going to escort you out." "I'm leaving on my own," Trump yelled, still struggling against their grip. "Let go of me!" Trevor watched the scene unfold, his expression unreadable. The audience was in complete chaos now. Some people standing, others filming on their phones, everyone talking at once. The producer was speaking urgently into his headset, clearly communicating with the control room. "Mr. President," the lead security officer said, his tone more forceful now, "you need to come with us, now." Trump's face was streaked with sweat, his carefully styled hair disheveled from the confrontation. He stopped struggling for a moment, looking around at the audience, at the cameras, at Trevor. "This isn't over," he said, his voice breaking. This is just the beginning. It's over for tonight, Trevor said firmly. And that's all that matters right now. Security began guiding Trump toward the stage exit, their hands on his elbows. He went with them this time, but not quietly. You're all going to pay for this. Every single one of you. I'll make sure of it. This show is done. This network is done. Trevor Noah is done. His voice echoed through the studio even as he disappeared into the wings. The audience sat in stunned silence for a long moment, the weight of what they'd just witnessed sinking in. Trevor stood behind his desk, straightening his jacket, his hands remarkably steady considering what had just transpired. He looked directly into the main camera, his expression serious. Well, that happened. And before anyone tries to claim this was edited or taken out of context, remember, you all just watched it live. You saw everything. You heard everything. Make your own conclusions. The producer rushed over, whispering urgently in Trevor's ear. Trevor nodded, then looked back at the camera. We're obviously going to need to take a break here. When we come back, actually, I don't know what we'll do when we come back. I think we're all processing what just happened. He paused, running a hand over his face. Look, I've done a lot of interviews in my career. I've talked to people I've disagreed with, people who've challenged me, people who've gotten upset with me. But I've never seen anything like that. And I want to be clear, I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to have a conversation. I wanted to ask questions that I think needed to be asked. But the moment someone in power can't handle being questioned, the moment they resort to threats and intimidation and personal attacks, that tells you everything you need to know. The studio was eerily quiet now, everyone hanging on his words. Trevor took a breath, composing himself. I know this is going to be controversial. I know people are going to have strong opinions about how this went down. And that's okay. That's what we do here. We have conversations, even difficult ones, especially difficult ones, because that's what matters in a democracy. The ability to question power, the ability to demand accountability, the ability to say, I don't accept that answer, try again. He glanced toward the wings where Trump had disappeared, then back at the camera. I don't take any pleasure in what just happened, but I don't regret it either. Because if we can't ask our leaders tough questions, if we can't push back when they make claims that affect millions of people, then what are we doing? What's the point of any of this? The audience began to applaud, slowly at first, then building to a standing ovation. Trevor held up a hand, quieting them. Save it. This isn't about me. This is about something bigger than me, bigger than him, bigger than any of us individually. This is about whether we're going to accept being lied to or whether we're going to demand better. He looked around the studio one more time, then back at the camera with a slight weary smile. All right, that's all we have time for tonight. And honestly, I think that's probably enough. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me, do you think journalists and hosts should push back harder on politicians who avoid questions? Or should they take a softer approach? I genuinely want to know what you think. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. The lights dimmed as the outro music began to play, but the energy in that studio remained charged, electric, unforgettable. History had been made, for better or worse, and nobody who witnessed it would ever forget the night Donald Trump was kicked off Trevor Noah's show.